I hope there's the cat all right there. He's quite comfortable.
Our third participant is perfect. He's doing everything as agreed by the script. Welcome
Yeah.
everyone to the live stream. It's a Friday night, so we're here once again to talk about guitars, building guitars, fixing guitars, modding guitars, all those sort of things. My name is Rafael. I'm here today with Ivan from Iconic Guitars. You can find the link to his Facebook page on the description. If you ever also need a tuition in building or repairing or playing, even, who knows? Ivan is your guy. We're here today. I wasn't here last week because it wasn't possible, and I won't be here next week because I'll be doing some sort of sound engineering that them never find out that I don't have actually any qualifications to be doing that, but that's a problem for another day. Ivan, how are you doing today?
I'm fine, thank you. Thank you for having me back again. Yes, thank you very much.
No, thank you for be willing to come on at such short notice. I just messaged you at around 6 p.m. asking like, oh, I just realized that actually next week I won't be able to have you on. Would you be able to save me and come on today to talk a bit more about the things that we discussed last time? It doesn't seem like there's anyone watching at the moment yet live, but there's always the rebroadcast that sometimes a few of us are watching. So what I wanted to discuss today with you is, so I've been doing these kits, right? I've done 3. So I went from hardest to easiest, I guess. I started on the semi-hollow, yes, 335 sort of style, for Coben guitars, and then staying in Coben. Then I did the Les Paul one, and then I did the Jazzmaster style one. And after finishing the Jazzmaster one and going to the guitar show and seeing what luthiers were presenting and what like Manson guitars and other smaller brands were doing, I thought there's definitely things that I should have done differently, either in color matching or finishing, or just the cleanliness of it. And I was speaking with the guy at Crimson because they were shaping a neck. From what we were talking, they were shaping a neck throughout the day, and I was saying like, oh, I keep finding defects on my earlier work from like 3 weeks ago, such earlier work. And it's like, oh, you can't continue to look back at it. And I was like, oh, yes, I can. Of course I can. So I came back home, and so that blue semi-hollow that I showed you is no more. Now it's painted over. And the green spalted maple top Les Paul is no more as well. It's painted over. Both green, both different shades of green, which does sound a little bit insane, but I'm learning that getting the right color or the color that you have in your heads or that certain brands use is not as easy as you might think, because just looking at the spray can in the shop or on a website or something, it's not perfect. Like the color on the can, it's not the color that comes out. Sometimes, like the first one I did was a darker green, Oxford green from Rust-Oleum, which probably is not the brand of sprays that I should be using, but that's a problem for next question. And then the second one is a high coat Ford Meadow Green, and what the first one is quite dark, like more brownish green, and the second one has a bit of more yellow, almost like a light army green. But if you looked at it in the cans, they look nothing like the colors that come out. So that's the first question that I have for you. I was watching today a Fender video of the guy painting, and they were using primer. So do you find, if doing a solid color, it's better to use primer, or like you suggested last time, and I've sort of tested it around as well, using shellac as sort of a primer and grain filler? Or what is the approach that you'd recommend if we're talking about solid colors here?
Yeah, it's interesting. If you're doing a solid, I mean, I used to, started off painting cars when I was, and so I used primer, and that generally that works. If you've got a solid color or a metallic color, what I would say in relation to using different things, whatever it is you're using, whether it's high coat or Rust-Oleum or whatever, use the same products. If you can use their same primer, and that goes with that, because there's no guarantee that things from different companies will be compatible. So that's just
I did this time around. I got Rust-Oleum color, and then I got the Rust-Oleum clear coat. That took a good 4 days inside to be anywhere close to dry, in terms of like not leaving marks easily on the clear coat. But yeah, I did follow the advice. Same brand.
As regards color, I mean, if you're using a solid color or something, I mean, I haven't got really the gift to see colors without having. I have to have, if I can, the color of the thing that I want, or find it, and actually have it with me, so that I can match up the closest color to it. Of course, different batches of paint will be different, even in the same color, maybe. So it's a good idea to buy.
I was speaking with a fellow car repairer from yourself, not from me. I don't do that sort of work. And he was telling me how, let's say the Ford Meadow Green, then it has different samples, slightly different from each other, because he explained it. I found it so interesting. The color changes per batch. So the first batch was the initial green, and then they filled the vat with more color, but it had a little bit of the old color in it. So the second batch will be a slightly different shade of green, and then 10,000 or 1,000 cars later, it's another batch that needs to be painted. So when, for example, when doing repair, you the painters have to like mix and compare with the samples to see, okay, is this the right one? Okay, this is close enough. That's not going to be noticeable. So it's a science. It's like a full-time job, isn't it? Like people that are, I don't know, color engineers.
It is. I mean, I had a chap called Martin Booth, who's he has a luthier, lives probably about 50 miles from me. But I met him. He came to my shop once. I had that honour, and he used to work for Gibson in the UK, and in part of his training, I think he worked for Gibson and Yamaha, and we were talking about this matching thing, some 10 years ago, and he said, well, Gibson worked out a long time ago that it's almost impossible to match. So if they have a guitar comes in to have a finish repair, they simply strip the whole thing and refinish it again.
I'm here. I'm still here. Just my camera is playing up. Today we're having.
They just don't bother to try and match it. So it says something about how difficult that is if Gibson will do it. But you can. I mean, if you're very good at mixing colours and things like that, some people can do it. It's not something. If I do it, it's probably more by luck than judgment. So as far as solid colours, I would say it's best to try and do it in one go. And if you get something like a drip that you go through afterwards, if you're doing it yourself, try and have some of that colour from that still there, so that you can. That's the best that I think you can do with it, really.
So to do a color base, so just going back to the primer just before I move on. So for example, using prime filler on a guitar, is that all right? Or is there anything that is undesirable?
No, that's good. It depends what you want to do. Now, obviously, if you want a solid color, I tend to use white primer under any color. And the filler, in fact, at the moment, we've got two guitars, which happen to be from a competitor to Coben, but they're still the 335 kind of guitars. A guy got these guitars, and he wanted one to have the Union Jack on, like the guy from Oasis. And so we've got to do that. That was a new one for us. And another thing, this is some honesty here that might help you. I had this guitar that he'd had painted with metallic red. It's kind of like what would it be? Candy apple red kind of colour.
All right.
And he got some, and so he had it, and it wasn't the most wonderful finish. He said that, but in my pursuit of trying to perfect, because I put the neck on and I did all these things, there was a little drip on and a run, and I tried to cookies going elsewhere. Yeah, I was trying to get rid of it, and I rubbed through it. Now and I quickly worked out that I wouldn't be able to match it, certainly not being metallic. So I went to him and I said, look, I've got a suggestion here. Look, this has happened, unfortunately. I'm happy to refinish it, and I'll do that. And he was good about it, But then I went to Northwest Guitars, and because I did know that the real candy apple, you probably know this, but the real
it has a silver coat, isn't it?
That's right. It's silver coat, Inca silver, with the red sort of clear, translucent back over top. Well, if you go to Northwest Guitars, they actually supply a can of both of those things to do it. So I'm in the process of doing that. And now he put lacquer, primer filler already on the guitar. The person had covered up the person who sprayed it, covered up all the binding and everything, just sprayed over it. Basically, it had gone inside the guitar as well. So I couldn't do anything about that. But I said, do you want the to see the binding? So yesterday I was
scraping primer filler from the,
and I found I could. It was a bit worrying to start with, but I found that I could get down to the binding, and now I feel encouraged. So now I'm back to basically to the primer.
The whole thing.
Yeah,
I'm really sorry, but there seems like the sound problems are back on again, and the guys are here letting us know. So what I'll suggest to do this. Let's try to do something. Just leave and rejoin.
Shall I do
so
that again?
Yes, please. Sorry.
I do apologise. I don't know what's causing that, but here we go.
Okay. So it's technical difficulties, isn't it? Trying to get this sorted. It's a shame because Ivan is so knowledgeable that I could hear it and I thought maybe it's just me by some strange event. I was hoping for that, but unfortunately, it is. So Katana Go thoughts. My thought is why isn't Katana Go just an app at the moment? Why do we need the thing to exist at this point? It could be just like the more app that exists. Well, Ivan is back. Let's try to get it going again.
Hello, and now, better.
It is. Let's see if it lasts.
Yes, hopefully it will. Hopefully we won't have to do it again, but I'll try and
thank you.
If anything happens.
So. Right. So exactly. So metallic colors are tricky because there is a silver undercoat on the candy apple red, or if you want to do some of those colors, and then if it goes through the finish, it's not a matter of just spraying a little bit more. It will have to be spraying on that. It will be like sanding a square if you wanted to fix it, I guess, and then prime it, and then ink, and then waiting times. So if you can using tape, do you use binding tape? Do you use like masking tape from like cars and stuff?
Yeah, well, you can do.
What sort of tape do you order, or just like painter's tape?
Yeah, well, you can use the either the white tape or the blue painter's tape. I tell you what I like though, you can get it from Stu Mac if you've got another order, from there, and you can get it. You've got this orange tape. You've got this orange tape that you can only get from there, and some of it is about 1/4 of an inch wide, just perfect for
binding.
For binding, and that works. And it also works really well if you want to. If I had an acoustic guitar here where a Martin, where the binding needed holding on, to glue it back.
All right. So you could,
rather than having to bind it with the cloth like you would, it's actually really holds well. And so I would go. I don't know what it's called. It's just orange tape, masking tape.
I was on Amazon the other day and I saw that they have these, I think it's vinyl, not vinyl, it's Husqvarna vinyl wrap something tape that it was a pack, and one of them was really thin. And I was talking with Dave here, and it used that on top of the guitar. Yeah. Like, let's say I used there to try to make some stripes or finish on the wood. And what happened is that when I pulled the tape, it pulled the finish.
That's a danger. So that's a real danger, and I think what can I say about that? You'd have to be very careful. But
So I've seen people say to use the tape like on clothes beforehand, and then
you,
put it so it has a bit of lint that it's not as strong.
I think, you know, if you can try. Try not to leave. Only thing I can say is try not to leave the tape on there a long time. You know, that's the thing. If you kind of leave it there 2 days or something like that, it tends to stick.
React probably with the finish and then pull like
That's right.
chemicals.
It will. So if you can try and not put it on the finish, if somehow if there's a way to stick it on there without sticking on the finish, especially like an acoustic guitar or something. That's what I would say. It's something you have to be very, very, very careful of. And yeah, I saw a Martin that had where, you know, that has happened. It's something you want to avoid, of course. But I would say just try be very careful about sticking something onto, especially a vintage guitar or
of course,
you know, something that could pull it off.
We with the binding, I don't know how I did it the first time around. I think I've always because it was stained, it was different. Now that I sprayed it all, and now I'm gonna have to spend some time scraping before doing the clear coat. But I'll have to take some off. I did notice because when I was painting, the first coat that I did was a bit shinier, and then the second coat turned matte on the color coat. Is that maybe the front had a gold? I tried like just a gold spray can to see if it would do, like a gold top would look good. It didn't because I didn't do it properly. But then I sprayed green over it, and it had like this shine. And then when I did more green, it was fine. So it should be fine.
Spray it on the same day in the same place?
No. After a couple of days of letting it dry and everything, and then I went on with second. I've done 3 coats on that guitar over the past week, which is a great improvement for my self control, because before I was building 1 guitar in 1 week, so taking 1 whole week to just do color base with no high coats, with no clear coats, it's.
I would say, I mean, and one of the things, and I'm not saying it was what happened, but moisture is a problem. You can, if it was more humid on another day, water.
Which it has been very humid.
Yeah, and so if it gets water in there, it's good if you can have some like a fan or something which is sucking. Or something. I used to have
I just bought a dehumidifier, but for the house, not for the garage. But it's sponsored by Devola. It's not, but it could be, because it's like £100, which maybe it's considerable amount of money to buy for a dehumidifier, but it's saving costs in the house, at least, for like not getting it rotten. But in the garage, I did think like I probably could get one of these things because it would help with the humidity levels outside. Although it's also then an electrical bill that will come from having something always on.
I think, the other thing is try and choose the day. If you've got a humidity gauge, try and do it when it's as dry as possible. I suppose the summer months coming will be easier for that, hopefully. I think
I'll be super busy. I'll be painting. I didn't send you the pictures, but at the moment, at some point this past week, I had 2 guitars drying. One the color and the other one the clear coat. So it was almost like a professional endeavor. I almost felt like, oh, this is good. And then I had my little fan heater working away from the guitars, not to dry the guitars directly with any sort of convex airflow, just away from the guitars, just to have air going and a little drier, but not into the guitars, because it can create cracks, isn't it, and things like that.
That's right. You don't want it to. I mean, I think about 50% moisture is ideal, but that's difficult to get in Great Britain. Probably easy to get in
Portugal.
Nashville somewhere.
Or Nashville as well, or Memphis, where they used to do the Gibsons, or was it Kalamazoo or Montana or something. Apparently your sound is gone again, so would you like to do the little dance of coming off and coming back on?
I'm sorry, but
It's okay. In the meantime, I'll talk about gear. Any more questions about gear that you guys would like to discuss that came out this week? It is an interesting thing. I've been trying to do the pickups and on my guitar, and that's a whole other topic. All right, we're back on again. It's an easy enough fix, you see. All right, so before we run out of time or have more issues, let's get to the point of, okay, so for example, finishing has all these steps. You know, there's the body prep, there's the filler, there is sanding sealer occasionally, isn't it? Or always, I'm not sure exactly what sanding sealer does, but let's leave it at that for now. Primer, color coat, and clear coat, just to get these to the point of we've sprayed clear coat, it's not cloudy, there we didn't trap a bunch of dust under it, it's not wrinkling. That's already a victory. I'm not even thinking about the measuring to see if the neck scale length is correct, in terms of sometimes it can need to be glued slightly farther apart than just sticking it to the neck humbucker route end. So let's say that everything, all the basics were done correctly. We finished everything. I did notice when I went to the guitar show that a few of the guitars were actually felt a bit rough or unfinished. I don't know if you know about some of these guitars that, like, Manson is doing it, Cream T did it, PJD does it as well. These small British built guitars that one of the things that they save money on to make a guitar around £1,000 mark or a little bit over is by not using grain filler and doing matte finishes.
Well, I mean, I haven't met Andy Manson, but he actually is in my Facebook friend, so I have spoken to him about things. And I was talking a few years ago about water-based finishes, because I was thinking about it. I didn't do it. I mean, I couldn't really work with that. And so I spoke to him about lacquers and things. And he says, you know, in recent years, he uses oil-based. He actually did give some products. I can't remember what that was, but oil-based products, things like True Oil and that sort of thing, I suppose, for nearly all his guitars now. He said you can use, you know, he didn't mind using nitro lacquer, but he's got quite a, you know, oil is his favourite. And really, I looked at Crimson guitars, and they have a video on well, their version of True Oil and those sort of things. So I
haven't been able to get oil to not feel sticky, to feel like thick enough but not sticky. Is there any? Well, Dave told me that it's like you put it on, wait 5 minutes, and wipe it off. Put it on, wait 5 minutes, and wipe it off.
That's right. Well, one of the things that we found, my co-worker has found on his neck, and that seemed to work really well, was, and you can put it over stain, was boiled linseed oil. It's boiled linseed oil, very thin layer over it. And he did a lot of experiment with this and found it's got a really smooth finish. And because it's because it's got dryers in it or something. So unlike ordinary linseed oil, it doesn't stay. It's actually really good on necks. But I just wanted to answer your question about primers and fillers and things. Some of this, you know, I'm sure that your listeners will know, but if you don't need grain filler with something like maple, but you do need it with things like
mahogany,
ash, related things, and ash. Otherwise you won't, you know, it'll go down into the pores. So it's different things you can use. You can either use, you know, oil or water-based grain fillers. Some people would color it like the color of the grain or whatever, but you must have something that goes into there. Having done that, the other thing that you need to do is when you sand it, you need to wet the wood, and because you'll get the little grain. You know, grains sticking up, so you need to then sand it, and that's where you need to sanding seal it, which you could now do with you know, you could either do that with vinyl sealer, or you could do that with shellac. Obviously, vinyl sealer is completely clear. If you don't want any colour at all, I would. If you can get a hold of vinyl sealer, I don't even know. It's hard to get a hold of something like that, and spray it so you've got a clear finish. You can even do it with the lacquer itself, a very, very fine layer. Sand that back, or wet and dry, and then you can do what you like over that.
I have noticed that using a gloss varnish on top of the maple, let's say on top of maple veneer or something for the Coban semi-hollow, or actually it was on the Les Paul that I figured this one out. For example, leather dyes, for example, the Angelus leather dyes work really well on top of a little dry varnish or shellac or something like that, rather than directly on the wood, because on the woods it like absorbs and creates this fine dust. But if you put it a layer of something clear,
there's different ways. Again, not me so much, but my helper, he's done some wonderful. I've got a guitar on my page which he did, really hand finished kind of sunburst finish, and he just stained that using different alcohol stains straight onto the maple on the top and sanding it, and he did that really well. With me, I find you have to be, if it's alcohol, you have to be pretty quick with it, otherwise it will go blotchy. So you've got to really flood it on and get it off quickly. That's the thing.
Right.
If you don't want to risk that, then I would say put some kind of sealer, very thin sealer on, so that it doesn't go into the wood. So it's really, there's not an exact science.
Which is harder to make some sort of burst, for example, if it has a sealer like that on top, because with the woods, if it's a water-based, you can like push the colors into each other. Wait, sorry. Apparently, we have reports that your sound is going off again. So
you want me to do that again? Sorry.
Shall we do it again? Yeah. So there we go. Thank you, Dave. I didn't notice it, but let's just was trying to let it finish. So yeah, there's many ways to do these sorts of things, and I think there is some merits in just going with it and trying and then redoing it again. And there is no perfect way to start it out. I think that's just the cost of learning. Welcome back.
Sorry,
Cookie's having the time of his life. He's just there. I thought that my cat was cuddly, but that cat, is he alive? Is he all right?
Oh, yes, he's right. He actually got attacked by another. It's a miracle, really. He's 14 and a half, and he got attacked by another cat 2 weeks ago. So I thought that was the end of it. But thankfully, the vet up the road, nice Spanish guy, managed to bring him back from the brink.
Oh, so dear.
He's here, and he's had a reprieve now. So.
Well, if you want to help pay for Cookie's vet bills that are never fun, iconic guitars. Ivan Emeny on YouTube, on Facebook, maybe on YouTube one day.
Sorry, I
we lost track of what you were saying there. But so the stains, the colors, there's definitely things like that. So then the other part, so that's the visuals, isn't it? It's like I was saying that a lot of these things, I think it's a realistic approach is that it takes time, it takes trial. Regardless of what you're saying here, I think only when the person, myself or you or anyone, actually is doing it and figuring it out is when we end up learning properly.
True,
but then there's the other part that is equally, if not for some, more important even, which is the fretwork. So, for example, on a kit, do you do a full fret level straight away, or you just go find if there are any high frets and then work on those?
Well, the first thing I tend to do, whether I'm setting up somebody else's guitar or building my own, I've got a little fret rocker. I think you might have one yourself. Yeah, a little fret lock rocker. It's a wonderful thing. I mean, you can either get one for Stu Mac or you can get one off, far cheaper from Amazon or somewhere, or even find something that's straight. But I check every 3 frets and see if anything's rocking all the way up and down, first of all. If there is, then I won't, you can easily end up chasing a high fret or buzz or something like that. So I'll find out where
Before stringing the guitar, do you do that before stringing the guitar, or after, or only after?
Without the strings on. So sometimes I'll just take the strings off and do it, or you obviously can do it with the strings on, but you don't need these strings to do it. So at that point, then you can tell whether there's anything high. Now, if there is, I'll get a black marker pen,
and like a Sharpie, not like a whiteboard one that will fade away easily.
Like that, yeah. And you mark across each pen. Now, some people will get, you can get the little fret protector things if you want to do that. I tend to get some tape and put between them or something like that, or just, it depends what it is. If it's obviously a fender type neck with varnish, then you need to be more careful. That's right, those things, that just like that. If it's rosewood, you can get away with it, but do be careful not to rub across the grain. You can, if you rub with the grain and hit it, then you'll be safe. But yeah, what I do is I'll get a diamond stone. I've got a diamond stone, and
is it similar to this sort of thing?
That kind of, yeah, that's right. Well, I use one of those, but I actually use I can't see whether that's the actual, just like a diamond sharpening stone, really.
Okay.
It's got to be flat. That's the main thing. You've got to make sure this, and then I'll just rub it until I just about remove the marker. Don't keep rubbing. As soon as it's gone, you can do it with a few passes.
Stop and check.
That's right, and then gradually you will get it flat. When you've done that, I'll use the the crowning file. I've got one of those. You can either get the one that's the shape of the frets, that's that, or one that I've got with.
I have this one with 4 sides as well. Just
right.
orders.
And I've got one which is like a 3-sided one with safe edges. I'll tend to use. But anything like that is good. Whether you've got the diamond files or the one, that doesn't matter, as long as. And you only have to do it 2 or 3 times each side. And once you've done that, you can go through. I start with 400 or 320, 400 grit wrapped around my finger, and I just rub that. Then I'll do 600 and 800. You could go 1200 if you like, but I tend to then use 40 wire wool, and then until it's really shiny, and also get the ends level as well. You can use an eraser, just like this is
the fret end file, isn't it?
That's right.
Well,
yeah.
It is.
I also get like a rubber, just an eraser, wrap some 800 or something around that, and just go over the edges of them just to make it smooth. You can use that as well.
You can see, I have the things, I just haven't even used them, which is the crimson rubbers with
You've got all those things. That is great. But actually, you don't. If you haven't got those at hand, you can use a lot of things. You can, if you've got a kind of a square eraser, like you use at school or something, put your wet or dry around that. 40 wire wool I use a lot. I mean, I think if you're allergic to that, as some people are, you can use synthetic versions or the microfiber, those sort of things. Anything.
The sound is back. Oh, right. So let's try again. we heard that a little bit there at the end.
Hopefully this is not going to happen every time, but we'll try.
Yes, we'll try that one more time. Sorry, Dave. We didn't hit the question on the head, did we? Of what's, I think, partially is we're not sure. I was talking with Ivan before. We're not completely sure how to get that like custom shop, because before we finish let's finish the frets and then go back to the finishes, because they've raised a good question. So Peter is asking if do you need to straighten the neck before going over it with a fret rocker? I would say yes.
Yes, yeah, you do. I mean, I use a straight edge. If you've got a nice straight edge, that's good. If you've got some sort of a metal ruler. And what you can also use, if you put the strings on there, and you can then use those as a straight edge if you haven't got anything else. That works quite well.
I've
Put the
also
two
used.
outside on.
You can also. It's not as in
Yes.
some places it gets tricky, like a credit card.
Oh
So
yeah,
try
I've
it
got
this
one of
way.
those. Yeah.
The if it's rocking, if you don't have a metal fret rocker, but then as it gets the distance smaller and smaller, it doesn't. There's free frets will fit more. What I have done, what I felt really smart about, was I used, because there's a fret kisser tool. I don't know if you saw on
Yeah.
Stumac, which is a fret rocker with a little bit of sanding on it. So I have a different fret rocker, so I might just do that to this one, which is a little bit of sandpaper, fine sandpaper, and then leveled with painter's tape on the side, and then you can just, when you find
I'd
the
not
thing,
thought of that, but that's a really
and then
cool.
you can just go backwards and forwards. It won't be rounded at the top, but it will be lower. And you can also do that with the credit cards. Like once you find the high frets thing, put a bit of sandpaper in the middle and then tape on the side just to make sure that it's the same level height as the sandpaper, and then go up and down with it.
Yes.
The question that Dave was asking was, so what's exactly the tip or the process that we have for the custom shop finish? Personally, I haven't achieved it, so that's the goal. I think, just quickly recap, then it's after we done the clear, very wet sand it with 1200, very lightly, right? Let it dry, and then do clear. The clear, this is something that I've realized only recently. Be at the right distance if you're using spray can.
Yeah. Oh yes, yeah, that's right. A couple of things with that. If you first of all, is to keep the first of all, when you release it, it would be the same if you were using spray gun. Don't release the nozzle while you do it. You've got to be off the guitar when you release it and put it on, and keep about 18 inches away the whole time. So don't go close to the guitar and away from it. Just keep it.
And relatively slow to get to see the spray, because what I was doing was I was leaving it farther apart and like misting it.
Yeah.
And then it's it sort of works, but it's not what we want.
You've got to be quite bold.
Good lighting, or in a place with good lighting, and then really see it being covered without then as well putting too much that would create drops.
The ideal is to, obviously you don't want it running, and you don't want it to be kind of misty, otherwise it will be like sandpaper or something.
Exactly.
You want to go across it and make sure that you make it so it looks glossy when you've done it without running. So you've got to be a bit daring with it, but obviously don't do too many passes. Do maybe a couple of passes, let that dry for, I don't know, half an hour or an hour or something. Rub it down between every 2 or 3 coats, and then put another one. So don't try and
build up straight away.
That's the worst thing. Otherwise, it will also shrink. That's the thing, and you'll get like creases and all sorts of things. So just be very patient with it and try and get. There was actually a car sprayer taught me this, a motorbike sprayer. He could get a really glossy finish on it just by the skill of
the spray. That's what the guy that in Portugal was saying. Is like when they're doing cars, they don't then go level sands and polish and buff like we're doing guitars. They just do the one thing, and then like the gloss in itself self-levels itself and creates that mirror finish. And if it's even says if it has some sort of drop, they might try to cascade it. So like put so much that the whole thing sort of melts, but the cost alone of doing this it's not doable. But
finishes, to be honest, I don't want a really kind of, this is why I don't like polyurethane finishes too much. You don't want it to be like a case for the guitar. You want it to be thin and glossy, and do maybe 8 coats and sand with 800 maybe between it. So keep it flat. And on the last one, get that as glossy as you can. I'm going to give you a secret. I shouldn't be telling you this, but here it is. This
Oh,
is
gleam.
from any shop, but it's auto glim. This was says £12. It's about £22 now, so I had that a year or two. But this is what they use for Ferraris. It's just for when you're finished. There it is.
And do you do hand finishing, or do you use a foam bit with a power drill?
Oh well, yeah. Before that, I'll use you can get swirl remover and compound and those sort of things. You actually go to Farikla, do a really good range of things. G7, G3. If you look up that FARECLA, I think it is. I don't know how to pronounce it exactly, but you can go through the grades and then use some swirl remover. And once you've got it all buffed up, I've got a buffer, but I use a drill with a foam.
That's what I was using just before this call. That's why I was a little late to the checkup, because I was like trying to.
And when you've done that, get some mutton cloth and some of this, and put a little on it and rub it, and it will be wonderful gloss finish. In fact, I got a chap called Guitar Repairer I know, who's very good, Robbie Gladwell from Sudbury. He actually recommended that, and you can get it from any car
Halford car place,
Halford, somewhere like that. But
unfortunately, the sound is cracking again.
Okay.
So shall we do one last try? I'm just conscious about you. I'm fine with it. I don't mind. It's a little like intermission here and there. Let me share with you guys while you're here the screen. Let's see. No, never mind. No, it doesn't show. I'm working on one, and I've got to the right end with ticket and polish, and now it has just small scratches that I'm gonna go back when we finish this, back in the garage and get some tickets to try to remove those little swirl scratches, and then use, because what I've used as well, and I think I've told you, is the Holtz headlight restoration kit that Eurocar Parts sells for 11 quid when I bought it a couple of months ago, and it has the foam bit to put on the power drill, and then sandpaper circles that go as well, that you could use on a power drill but don't on the guitar, but you can wet sand it from 800 to 2000 or something like that, and the polish similar to that as well, gleam, and finally a buffing. But the buffing spray that they have, it's like this almost, I don't even know how to describe it. It's like this really slick material that then it's good for the rain on headlights, but I don't think it's great on guitars, because then it just feels very slippery.
I've not used that, but I mean, because the thing that you don't want on anything, especially guitars, is anything with silicone in it.
Yes.
If that gets under it, you've got a problem. You can't get rid of it, even if you it can get into the guitar. So basically, you don't want. So if it's anything like silicone-y kind of thing, you don't want that in there. So don't put like house polish or something.
Polish. You tell me that now. After I've cleaned all my guitars, the cleaners came over the other day and they just dusted all the guitars with polish.
Yeah,
right.
That can be a problem. But I mean, all these things really. Find your own products, but certainly all the products that are used on cars really work on guitars, because it's lacquer, and the things that work with lacquer, whether acrylic or polyurethane or
and we're never gonna put as much material on the guitars using these products as the factory does. And I think I'm starting to get why they do it. It's because it guarantees like a stable, consistent finish throughout, if you get that really thick layer of material that guitars you often have. And then there's the relicking. I don't know if you've attempted
Burfy Labs kind of thing.
Yes. Have you played with that sort of idea of like freeze it and unfreeze it, or
no idea what he does? I have to say, I have watched videos and things.
Hit it with hammers and nails and stuff. This one has been a victim of my attempts of
Oh, you've done that. Yeah.
No,
Oh, yeah.
where is it? Oh, wait, let me just change here the see. No, it wouldn't be this one. Would it be this one? Yes. So
Just about. Yeah.
just about it. It's a little bit here and there and stuff. But this finish is not the best. This was the finish before I started getting into the kits themselves. But and the body already had some marks from the stripping of the previous finish. So I thought, well, it already has some marks. I'm just gonna like ding it a bit more, so it's an effect rather than a defect.
Yeah,
that was so smart.
Well, I have to make my the best that I've ever seen. I had a 1974 Gibson SG, 3 pickup Gibson SG came in some years ago, and it had the flattest, most mirror-like finish I've ever seen. And I guess it just makes, I mean, you can, a check is if you get something like a 12-inch ruler and you can hold it upwards and then you can read it in the reflection, you know you've got something like that. I actually don't know how they did that. I guess 1974, just pure skill of the polisher, I would think.
Probably just really like hard curing material, and someone that was really careful with the buffing and getting it right. There is skill to that. Obviously, not everyone has it, and I don't have it yet. Maybe one day.
I have that skill, but that's the best I've seen, and I think, well, yeah, that's that's something to aim for. I think
rather than aiming to be able to partially destroy a guitar.
Well, that's obviously some people like that, don't they?
It is. I find it cool, but when my guitars get a ding, I don't find it particularly interesting. No. Me and Dave have talked about this in our own messages and stuff, and the goal is to be able to do a really nice finish.
Yeah.
So then, if relicking is an option rather than we couldn't do the finish correctly, so we just relic it on it, and then it's just like.
Yeah, that shouldn't be kind of well, it didn't work, let's relic it.
Let's just relic it, which is a business marketing for sure. Dave is asking, how would you go about replacing binding?
Binding, yeah. My experience of doing that, I mean, I tend to avoid, replacing all. I've never done it completely, but I've had loose binding on acoustic guitars and things. So the thing is, if you can don't use anything that dries too quickly. I would say probably like super glue. I tend to use something like araldite that takes a bit longer. You can obviously you got to be careful because it depends on the binding. Some bindings will melt with certain things. The nitrocellulose or the acetone will. What do they call it? Like the celluloid ones that they used to use acetone to kind of melt it into the guitar, but that takes a lot of skill. You've got to be careful that you don't melt the binding in the process. So I don't know if this is right or wrong, but I tend to use a very small amount of araldite on the inner one, and just something that gives me time to if you got 3 different black, white, black or something like that, and then be very careful to make sure that they all look right. Get some tape like the orange tape, and also being careful, of course, the other thing, not to pull the finish off somewhere else. You could bind it like Gibson did with
strings or rope, or
you could do that, but anyway, that you can kind of hold it on there. So I can only say that I've done sort of partial binding things, apart from building, my own guitars and putting that on there. Replacing binding, I'm probably not the person to ask, because
removing it as well is like he's asking. It must be a bit challenging. So yeah. Dave, don't come up with questions that just makes us look bad at the end of the day. This replacing binding. Just get a different body guitar.
Yeah, yeah, it's a risky thing to do. I have to say, if you go for it, if you're confident enough, but I tend to.
Yeah. It's easy to remove binding. Just get a router bit and a hand router. Just go around.
Oh yeah, I mean, want to completely remove it and then put new binding on. You know, you don't. It's your guitar. Yeah, you could do that. You know, but,
Yeah, it's like it's alternative.
but yeah, I mean, if you wanted to, you know, if you're not worried about it and you want to just for whatever reason just change the binding. I was going to say. I was going to say, get warm it up with a heat gun or something like that. But you don't want to melt it, obviously. But so anything that will kind of ease it and get it, and then get like blades, like Stanley blades.
Yeah, because
ease it off.
needs to remove the clear coat first.
Yeah,
and then even if it's not a heat gun, even if it's a hair dryer, just to soften it, and then some sort of blade, not a chisel like I did with one of my guitars doing things. And then
now more like a razor blade or a scalpel or something thin that you can get behind it and just very, very slowly ease it off, and then you'll once it will come away once you can get to a point where it comes off. I've done that with fingerboard binding before and put that back. Well, that's quite a common one because old guitars get dry and it comes off.
Yeah.
So, but I was thinking putting around the body. But if it's on the neck, I have done that. If it's straight.
What about a soldering iron with a blade tip?
That you could do that again. A soldering iron might be a bit violent. That's the only thing. The trouble is if it's too hot, you can
burn the wood very easily.
Somebody knocks on the door and you forget for 2 seconds you've gone through it. So I'm going to be careful because somebody might come back to me and say, I
set my house on fire. I did leave my soldering iron for a good hour on the other day, and when I came back, the tip was completely darkened and carbonized. So new tip on it.
Yeah.
So I think we completely and utterly answered the question which started this live stream of how to get the DIY kits to custom level, custom shop level. Maybe not completely, but there's a lot of good discussion here, and definitely it sets us in the right track. We're getting to the hour mark, and it's Friday night, and I have a very exciting plan, which involves going back to the garage and playing around with tickets, and also even trying to get some pickups to work, which I have not been able to. Speaking of which, just very quickly while I have you here, this is my opportunity to ask you. I bought a Epiphone kit on eBay that came with the pickups and the freeway switch and the wires and the quick plug system that they have now. The problem is they said, oh, it's just plug and play. It's not. They sent me the wrong parts and the things were not connected to the right thing. So I think I replicated it, like looking at diagrams. But when I plug it in, even outside of the guitar, it has this really loud ground loop that regardless where I touch, it doesn't close.
Oh, right. I mean, this is a thing that is not always obvious from kits, but I did it on one of these guitars the other day. You do realise that you've got to have the strings earthed.
Yes, onto the post of the. Yeah, but even touching the earth, it wasn't. It was. I think I just.
Another thing that does it sometimes is if you've got the polarity the wrong way around. If you've got the, I don't know how that would happen. If you've got the shielding on the outside, it shouldn't happen. But,
I think about that because it could be the input jack. Because I tested everything else and everything else seemed to be working. It could just be the input jack that is wired wrong. And then as soon as I put it on.
If you've got the shielding is on the wrong side, say that if the shielding's been somehow connected to the center pin, and so the shielding is not now acting as the earth, it's that can cause that, and I've had that problem. So that might be as simple as just changing the wires. On
I'll try that before completely doing, because Coben comes with the solderless plug and play, which I could just do that. But I wanted to put these new pickups because they're zebra, and I think they will look cooler.
Yeah, I think
Otherwise, I'll just cut the quick plug system,
yeah,
connect the two extra wires one to each other, and just do it the old-fashioned way of soldering to the quick connect system that they have, like the wires themselves. But
but the other thing is to you make sure that all the pots are earthed as well. It could be something that's that's just you don't want earth loops. That's the other thing. You don't want like two
yeah,
earths. That can be a cause a potential difference, which causes it. But it could be that there's just something in there that isn't being grounded.
it's
Uh,
such a it's such a ball ache. That's what it is.
is it rabbit warren really with these things looking for electrical buzz? It can be.
Especially because it has like PCB boards. So
Yeah,
it's split coils with PCB boards at the front. So soldering there is extremely hard because it's always at the risk of melting the plastic.
yeah,
And I've looked at it, and first I was trying to figure out, okay, with the parts that I was given, does this work? It
yeah,
didn't. Uh, because the thing is, now the way that I've done it, so I've had to redo the tone knob. I think what
yeah.
they sent is just wrong. So I've done the tone knob and connected the things, but and when I switched neck, I tapped and I could hear the neck, and when I switched bridge, there was the bridge, and then on the middle there was bridge and middle, but always with this really loud, not even buzz. It was like the buzz straight away as soon as it's connected.
You just got to check all your all the screening, all the earth wires, the ground wires to everything. Just check them with a meter or something to make sure that they are all connected. If that's not what it is, it does sound to me like it might be somewhere along the line.
Yeah.
Polarity it could be one of the pickups. Because I suppose if you've got shielded wire, that shouldn't be possible to do. But
No. I
that's all.
think what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna be lazy and I'm gonna bin basically the Epiphone stuff and just use the pickups with the other electronics. The problem that I have is that I reamed the one of the knob holes because one
Yes.
of the things was an alpha pot,
Yeah.
which had this really big knob. No pun intended. Uh, and now the thinner shafts are just dangling up and down. So
But if it,
my
I was going to say,
uh,
if it means anything, Jimmy Page's double neck. Apparently, there's a new. You might have seen that there's a new version coming out, which is about £50,000 or something, which is signed by him. A copy of Murphy aged custom shop copy of his ES 1275. But the original one I read years ago, they called it the radio aerial because they had a buzz on that they couldn't really. They found it very difficult to get rid of. So if it happens for him, it probably happens. It can happen for you and me.
well, then I just need to play like Jimmy Page, so it can be excused, which
Hide up
easier
the
said than
buzz.
done. And with that, we're almost at the hour. All right, Ivan, thank you so much once again for coming. Dave, thank you for manning the comment front. Today was a bit less busy, but you never know. Maybe people will enjoy watching on replay, as it says on TV. So thank you very much, everyone, and until next time, take care. Bye bye.